Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to check out what's new in HelpSpot 4.5. My name is Ian Landsman from Userscape, and got some stuff popping up here. Okay, um, so we'll go through kind of the highlights of 4.5. There's a whole bunch of changes, a lot of obviously small improvements and fixes. But what I want to show off is obviously some of the bigger headline features for you and see what you can expect next week when HubSpot 4.5 is released. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to assume everybody is pretty comfortable with HelpSpot and the layout and everything. So I'll be jumping around a bit to just show the different features. So first off, I'm going to go into the request screen. And just so you know, we have a bunch of Alice in Wonderland fake data in here. So you'll see some kind of weird stuff. But that's just how we build out fake data for when we're testing. And I want to populate this with information. So it's real, especially when we get to the reports. Okay, so on the request screen, we have some new features. We have a new WYSIWYG, which is cleaner. It's also more responsive. So if you're on the smaller screen or anything like that, it will responsively adjust and not push your browser sideways or do any weird stuff like that or be super small. It'll still be workable. I'm not going to go too much into that, but one of the things the WYSIWYG lets us do is have inline images. So in the past, you could attach an image and it would just kind of insert into here a placeholder, but you couldn't see the image in line. But now we can put the image right in. So if we do something like, okay, so we can actually just drag and drop. So I'm going onto my desktop here and I can drop a file, which is also new. And so we can just drag and drop images right in line. Okay, so we have that set. Obviously can write around it, we can move it and all that kind of stuff. There's a beautiful picture of a flower. Maybe you just want to send a beautiful picture of a flower. But really handy. Obviously you can insert more images in here and so on. So it makes it really nice. You can see what's attached here as well. Dragging and dropping also works with files. So if I grab a file here, I just attached this CSV file just by dragging and dropping it. So a really handy new kind of two additions here, the ability to drag and drop files, as well as the ability to work with images right in line. So that's really nice and just makes writing your replies so much cleaner because you don't have to guess, especially if you have multiple images, where sometimes it would be a little bit confusing as to which image you're referring to, especially if you're going back and forth and making adjustments to your text. Now it's really clear and all right here for you. We could submit this. And there we go. We see it's in line as well as our attachment here. Oh, I do also want to add, if you do have any questions on anything, you can put questions in the question box as we go. It's part of the webinar control panel there. And at the end, I will go back through and can happy to talk about any questions on new stuff or anything else. Okay, so while I'm in here, we have another new item in the history, which is the ability to pin a history. And so this is really handy. If you have a long running request, a lot of times, for instance, like we'll often need some access information to someone's installation, and that gets buried in, 10 back and forth emails, and it's something you're referencing a lot. Instead of having to always look back for it, now you can just pin it, and now it'll always be at the top. So now this note will always be at the top, regardless of anything else that occurs or when new requests and notes come in. This one will always be at top. So it's great for information the customer sends you that you want to make sure is top. and always available. It's also really good for you managers if there's like a note you want to leave for people to understand something maybe special about this particular request. You can pin it because you can also pin private notes as well. So that could be pinned and always be at the top with your kind of special instructions for this request. So a really small thing, but really handy in kind of the day-to-day operations of your help desk. Okay, let's check out some other new coolness. This is one, a small one, but useful, often requested. So in the categories and the custom fields, there's a new option that lets you, let me go actually to custom fields. If we make a new custom field here, so in the past, when you create a custom field, if you wanted it to only be visible in certain categories, you have all these items you might have to uncheck manually or check manually, and now you can check and uncheck all. So it's very small, but if this custom field is only for one category, for instance, now we can just uncheck all and check the one we want, and it saves us a bunch of clicks. We do have a lot of customers where they have dozens and dozens of categories, or on the flip side of that, they might have hundreds of custom fields for their categories. And so when you were building a category, selecting custom fields from that view could be very tedious. So that all these places now throughout HelpSpot where you have these checkbox lists can all be checked and unchecked together. So small, but very useful. Okay, so while I'm in this view, I'm going to create a new custom field while we're here. I'm actually going to make it an always visible. We'll just call it priority. We can have high, medium, low. Okay, so in predefined lists, we have this new feature that's really handy. So for something like priority, it makes a lot of sense, or anything where you want to highlight. Because what we can do now is we can associate a color with each of these selections. So let's say we're going to make high red, and we'll make medium blue, make low some kind of green. Okay, so now in our filters, when we see them in the workspace, we will have these items color-coded. So let's go ahead and create this field. Okay, so let's see, I have my all open filter. So I'm just going to take, so that's a new custom field I built, right? So I need to populate it with some data here. And I'm just going to do that. I'm going to make these high. And I'm going to make some of these other ones low or medium. Okay, let's do these ones as low. Okay, so I'm going to edit this filter. I'm going to go ahead and put our new custom field as one of the columns that are displayed. I'm going to save that. And there we go. So now we have this nice highlighted label to draw attention to those particular fields. And obviously, if it doesn't have a value, it doesn't show any color. It's also possible to have in a single column some values with no color. So if you don't select a color, it would just be the normal text here. And it'll just display as normal text. So even within the column, you could have certain ones that are color labeled and other ones that aren't. Like maybe we only want high to be red and everything else to just have no color label at all. We could do that by just applying the red to high and leaving the other ones alone. So that's really, really handy. It also is more flexible than what we would often get requests for is whole row highlighting, which gets a little crazy, first of all, when you have like a lot of different colors in the whole row, but also is a little bit less flexible, because what you could do with this also is you could have multiple columns of this. So if you want to have multiple of your predefined list columns that have some sort of labeling, then you can do that. And if you want to apply more kind of sophisticated color coding, or you don't want people to have to manually do it, you could have a column that is basically just there to highlight certain rows, and then populate those custom field values, for example, with triggers or something like that, so that when a request reaches a certain scenario, that custom field value is set, and it would create this highlighting effect on that row for that request. So a lot of flexibility there, the ability to have multiple columns, like I said, and unlimited number of variations and colors and all that kind of stuff. So really handy way to add some visual indication to high priority items and things like that. Okay, let's look through some notes here. All right, a couple more items I want to show you here. Won't take up too much of your day. Let's jump over to reports. So we have two big new reports. So the first is the productivity overview. So this is a really cool report. So already in HelpSpot, you can kind of get averages and medians and so on for your first response speed and how fast you resolve requests. And that's all very useful. But something that we want to see, and a lot of customers would be interested in, is a more comparative view, where your kind of times and things are segmented into more easily kind of digested groupings. And so the productivity overview does that. So if we want to see our first response speed, for example, and right now it's by month. So in May, in our test data here, you can see that we initially responded to our customers within 15 minutes, 44% of the time, and that was 144 requests. And then it goes down through 15 to 30, 30 to 60, 1 to 3 hours, 3 to 6 hours, 6 to 12 hours, and 12 plus hours. So all in this one spot, very easy to consume, to kind of see across our ranges, to get a much nicer idea of, in a more kind of meaningful way, without doing a lot of extra work to figure it out, our first response speeds. And on the same report here, we also have the same for our resolution times. And the scale changes a little bit to try to be what's generally going to be more realistic. So, in under an hour, 21%, or 1 to 3 hours, 6%. And it graphs it for you nicely here too. It's all color coded, so we can see how we're doing over time. Are we lowering these speeds? Are we increasing the width of the lower quantity times? So, like for example, here we want to make this green bar as fat as possible. So is that fattening over time? Are we reducing our resolution speeds to under an hour, or is that narrowing, where we're falling out of that and we're having a lot more that fall down into the lower ranges? And just by looking at the width across the graph, you can see that, which is a really nice kind of visualization, even without this chart here. If I move that for a second, you can just kind of see that very easily over time. And this view defaults to kind of this 4-month view, but you can drive down, into days. If we go to just like this June's not a full month. Let's go to May. So you can see over that time, and you can drill down to any day here. It's a little more useful, obviously, on the month level, but you can do it that way. You can also go across whole years. For those of you who've been with us for a long time, there is a group by year option, so that's kind of handy. Let's see, we can do that. I don't know if this will go back to 2005. It does, so there we go, by year. And also you can have it calculate based on business hours or all hours. So business hours will obviously take into account your business hours you've set in the settings, so that you're calculating only against the time you're actually working. or all hours will disregard business hours and be the actual amount of time between contact and first response, or between contact and the final closing of the request. You can also filter too. So if you wanted to then see this data for a particular category or something like that, you could do that. So now we'd have this data for just that category. And we can also access the data itself and export either one to CSV or both. So very handy. I think this will be a really popular report because it's just very actionable. It's the kind of report that's really nice to share with your team. It's digestible. So really looking forward to getting everyone's feedback on that once you get your hands on it next week here. And the final new report is a comparison matrix. So this is a report that I've wanted for a long time myself. Really cool report. So the comparison matrix lets us compare pretty much any data throughout the whole system. And so here by default, it's comparing our categories over time. So over the last 2 weeks. So this is going to make it super easy to spot trends. Like, are we seeing a lot of, here, there's been a cluster of general sales questions these past 2 days. Really easy. It's got this heat map display, so we can see the hotter areas. Very visual, very easy to see. We can do this for all kinds of different data. So different statuses, assigned users, contact methods, mailboxes, portals, the custom fields. So like we just did custom fields, do that. So this one, obviously, we just built this custom field. It doesn't have any farther back data. Here we can see these last couple days I batch updated. So status type, why not? Okay, so problem solved and active, but we do have a couple in customer found solution. We can also do reporting tags. I don't know if any are set. I think they're not, but I will attempt to show you this anyway. Yeah, so there's nothing for that. Let's see. Let me go back to category because I want to do something else here. You can control both axes. So you can, rather than just doing across a date here, we'll do y-axis category, x-axis status. And so now we can see by category and status. So we have 6 that are in human resources and active. There's 149 that are human resources problem solved, and so on. All just in this one beautiful display where you can see it all right here without having to run a bunch of different reports as we would have had to have done previously to get this kind of data. We could see it all together in one spot. We want to see category by assigned user. We could do that. So the number of server issues with each of our staff members, for example. Number of maintenance issues with each of our staff members. Super easy. Just a great visualization of it all. And again, works with custom fields, works with reporting tags on categories. So lets you do some really cool stuff there. You do get the data as well. In the grid view, you also get totals, which can be handy. So if totals were something you were interested in for this data, you won't have to, if you're just looking for a number, you won't have to like export it and go into Excel or anything. We give you the totals over here. And you can further limit by any of the filter conditions that you're used to. And it is possible to do some things that might not make sense, so be aware of that. But we do give you everything here. So you could do something like maybe you only want to see this, for a certain customer, for example, and you'd be able to see this matrix for that customer, or limiting it to a certain category. Like maybe you want to do status by user and status type, but limited to the category of just sales. So we could do that. And obviously, you control your date ranges, all the standard date tools here. And there's also this one little flag, does have a description, but basically what it does is limits it to only active versions or data. So for example, it's defaulting to yes, meaning that in this case, only currently active staff people will be here on the x-axis. If we said no, then it's not going to be limited to active and it'll be everyone. So for example, staff people who are no longer working with you, they would still be listed here. So if you're like going back into old data and you want to show what somebody worked on who may not even work here anymore, you'd be able to set that to no and have them be part of this as well. So really cool. I'm like super excited to see what everyone does with this and the feedback we get on it. But I think it's going to be really, really handy report. The final big item I want to touch on isn't actually in HelpSpot at all, but it's that we've built an integration with a product called Zapier. And so I just want to talk about Zapier for a little bit here. And that's at Zapier.com. And there's all this information is actually available, or at least most of it, the highlights is available at helpspot.com/new. So you can see the overview here, and also Zapier is listed here. But we obviously get a lot of requests to integrate with different CRM tools and all data systems, as well as to do kind of specialized things like maybe send an SMS in a certain scenario, or work with email in a way we don't work with it, or do something with Google spreadsheets, or all kinds of things, and post into Slack or post into HipChat, all that kind of stuff. So what we've done is, instead of building out all those individual integrations, which is very difficult and time consuming thing to do, and maintenance wise is very difficult, as all those apps are changing constantly. And even if we undertook that, we're only ever going to be able to do so many kind of the very biggest ones, and there'd be a lot of edge cases that people use certain systems and they want that integration. So what we've done instead is work with this company called Zapier. It's a product that does exactly that, and what it does is it lets you integrate HelpSpot with practically any other software solution out there, thousands of them. So if you wanted to say every time a request comes into HelpSpot, enter a line in a Google spreadsheet, you could do that. Or every time a request comes in, enter a note into Salesforce. Or every time Salesforce is updated, we want to, under a certain set of conditions, actually generate a new request in HelpSpot. All that kind of stuff can now be done with Zapier, and it's really easy to do. Zapier is extremely affordable. We use Zapier for a lot of different things at Userscape here, and it's like $20 a month, so it's not burdensome. And for that, you get more than enough for most needs. And you can just create these integrations. So you can integrate HelpSpot with pretty much any other system, CRM tools, like I said. There's a lot of things it does with SMS, email, and different what they call workflows. So you can go through Zapier.com and see all the details, but even interesting things like you want to put everybody who contacts you for support onto your MailChimp, a special MailChimp list for people who have ever contacted you for support. And then that way you can quarterly send them surveys through MailChimp. Could do that. So all that stuff, all easy to automate. You want to post a Slack message every time there's a new request, no problem. Post a Slack message on every update to every request, totally possible. So a lot of different things you can do here with the HelpSpot integration of Zapier. And so definitely encourage you to take a look at Zapier. The integration between HelpSpot and Zapier is currently in beta. So if you want early access to it, you can just contact our support and we will put you on the beta. I'd love to have you trying it out. We already have quite a few customers using it. It actually this integration is actually backwards compatible with any HelpSpot version 4 installation. So you could actually start using this today. It's not specific to 4.5, but we're just kind of rolling it out with 4.5. So you could definitely hit us up today, and we'd be happy to get you in there and integrating your other systems with HelpSpot really easily. So a lot you can do there. Um, and like I said, we have a number of customers already, who have this in production use and are wiring up HelpSpot with their other systems. And there's no programming involved. It's all done through the Zapier interface. So very, very easy to do. You don't need developers. It literally just takes minutes to wire up HelpSpot to your other systems. So I think there's going to be a lot of things that can be done there. And as those build out, once the Zapier app's out of beta, we'll also be talking more about that. I think we'll probably run some webinars even to show what's possible there and highlight some kind of common cases and things. So be on the lookout for that. And then also it's possible to have these kind of pre-built example integrations in Zapier once it's out of beta, the app, the connection. So we'll have those getting set up as well over time here. And we do talk about it here in integrations. So this is only in 4.5, the screen, but under admin integrations, it just talks about it. And you can learn more about Zapier as well as we have our documentation on the Zapier connection. So again, not a lot of documentation because it's actually quite straightforward. Okay, so that was the kind of highlights I wanted to cover. We do have some questions. So I'm going to go through the ones we have now. If you have any other questions, definitely feel free to put them in the question box there and we will go through it. Okay, so question on pinning. Can you pin more than one note? You can. So these will be pinned. If we reload it, they're still pinned. So yep, can pin multiple notes. A question on if this is being recorded. It is being recorded because I remembered to push record, which doesn't always happen. So it is being recorded, and I will email everybody with the link to it once it's processed, which should just be later today that we have it up. Can the comparison matrix compare day and customer ID? So currently we don't have the comparisons enabled for the per user data. It's a little bit of a tough call. We might even revisit this before it ships a little bit. It's a really close call on that one. What we're going to try to do is test it out a little bit more. The problem with that is that, I don't know your particular use case, but for some customers over a given time span, there could be hundreds of thousands of unique customers. And so that, isn't going to go very well with this kind of UI. It's not designed for that quantity of data to be displayed. And it will be an extremely long query. This is actually some pretty complicated querying here. Not complicated querying, it's somewhat complicated, but also it's just every single one of these boxes must be queried against the database. And so if there's 100,000 on one of these accesses, that's a lot of queries. So you could, hurt your database a little bit with something like that. So we did have some ideas about potentially limiting, like maxing that out at, a few thousand or something like that. But then that would also be, for a lot of customers, that would be sufficient. For other customers, it might not be clear that it's been truncated to a few thousand. So we would have to, probably have some type of note about that, which isn't obviously doable. But yeah, so that's still, it might sneak in even before 4.5. It's not in here yet, but I'm not promising it. We have to do a little bit more testing just to see the kind of ramifications of that, and if we can do it in a way that it makes sense. Certainly for a lot of customers who aren't on that more extreme end of the scale, being able to group by customer ID here or customer email even it would probably be a useful access point. So definitely something we're thinking about and might sneak in yet. Okay, this one's a little longer. 1 second. Um, okay, so a question on if the color coding could be applied to if the customer has replied. So let's see. There is some visual indicators for that already. So in your My Queue, you'll have this green dot if the customer is the last to reply, if it's unread in My Queue. In the filters, you have this arrow if a staff person was the last to reply, or else it'll be blank if that's not the case. So there is some visual indication there. Obviously, it's not quite as highlighted as this. Um, what you could do, so there isn't a direct way to say every time it's updated. Uh, it's not just like it's not built in going to do that, but you could probably have a custom field that was last reply from and have staffer or customer as the two options with different colors, and then use triggers. So if we go to triggers, so you need a couple of them, like you need an on create one probably, but the more tricky part is the on update. So on update, um, if the acting person now is the customer, then we would set the custom field, and this would not be the priority custom field. It would be, your last response custom field. Let's say to customer, and we'd save that trigger. And then we'd have a second trigger on update if the acting person is not the customer. Then you could set that to the alternate value, so you'd have a separate trigger for that, and you'd probably also just want to have an on create that just sets it to the customer being the last one, since they'll have been the last one. So a little bit tricky. You need like 3 triggers, I think, to do it, and there's probably some edge cases in there that you might need to account for. But overall, I think that would be somewhat workable to do that with a custom field dedicated to that purpose, and triggers to update that custom field appropriately. Oh, she's just following up here. Yeah, so the problem with the green dot is that it can't, whenever you read it, it does disappear, whether it's from the mobile app or from the desktop. Um, so it does disappear. Uh, it's then would be in a state like this, so you still wouldn't see like the replied, but yeah, it's not as visually indicating, of course, as the labels. So I do think with the triggers, you could create a more prominent labeling without too much fuss. I think that would be possible. Again, just a custom field for last reply, and 2 status types of last reply was from customer, last reply was from staff, and then a couple triggers to change that custom field's value back and forth as needed. Question on drag and dropping images, and does it work for responses? So currently the responses haven't changed, so that it doesn't work for responses currently. You would have to manually put in like the image here. I think if there would be a good way around that. That's an interesting idea to have it work here. You could do so. So this is just a hacky workaround. But what you could do is, if you built it here, would this work? I might be giving you bad advice, but let's see. Let's try it. Okay. Okay. So if we build it here in the regular WYSIWYG, we can go down here, which gives us the code. Is that going to work? I don't really think that would be a good way to do it. No. it might work, but I wouldn't want to recommend it to you to do it this way. So forget everything I just said there. So no, not currently. It doesn't. You still have to manually build those out. You can put image tags in there and insert images in there that you've uploaded, elsewhere, but currently it doesn't save it in there. But that was an interesting idea for the future for sure. Okay, other questions? Looks like we might be to the end of the questions here. Gonna give it one more second in case anybody's typing. Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone taking the time to check out what's new. And we'll be emailing you all next week with the release information. And those of you on HelpSpot Cloud will be rolling out the update over a couple days. And so you'll all be getting upgraded automatically. And I think that's it. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a great rest of the day. If you do want to get into the Zapier beta, just shoot us an email at customer.service@userscape.com, or you can just go on the site, obviously, go to the support section and submit a note, and we will send you an invite to that. Otherwise, have a great day. Thanks all.